Catherine Friday, the Global Lead on Education for EY. Thanks for joining us on Flow today.
My great pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Tell us a bit about your report, which does sound like the prediction of the death knell of universities, at least as we knew them.
So absolutely. So I think what COVID has really accelerated has been the change to learning anywhere in much the same way that COVID has also given us work from anywhere. And what that means is that if universities want students to return to campuses, then there has to be a really clear reason for them to do that, because there is so much content and really great high quality content that is available digitally, including a lot of domestic and international university content, that universities are really needing to rethink the entire way they create for a student's experience.
Yeah, now we've got students completing or trying to get their exams done all over regional Victoria, South Australia, New South Wales. They might be stressing about, what the degree they might go into, but this isn't necessarily a radical change that's going to happen suddenly. It's been happening already, hasn't it?
It has been happening already. That's exactly right. And I guess the first thing I would say to students who are stressing about their potential exam outcomes is there are so many pathways into the workforce these days. University is absolutely not the only path. And many employers, in fact, offer their own learning and development for employees, including firms like my own, for instance. But for those that are wanting to have a university experience, then the experiences that they can expect should be changing to adapt and support them and give them an increasingly personalised experience as well. And what students will find is that it doesn't matter if they are at one of the big universities in the city or at a regional university. They will be able to access courses and coursework and network and connections that are far more designed around them. And we're seeing the whole rise of a design called Student at the Centre. And so universities are thinking really hard around how do they create personalised teaching and learning experiences for every student, so that every student has the potential to live up to their full learning opportunity and their full workforce opportunity, regardless of where they go to university.
Yeah, I want to come back to that student-centric point for our regional students in a moment, but there was something else really interesting in your report about the greater linkages between the workplace and employers and university study. Where do you see that going? Just more job-focused and on-the-job learning within the university, a bit like the trade learning that's been happening for a long time?
So absolutely, Rikki. We think there will be both a greater combination of both industry connection into the sort of courses that universities are delivering. But we're also seeing it happen the other way as well. So we're actually seeing a lot of employers wanting to design and develop their own learning content that is specifically for their own employees, and that can be at certificate level or degree level or even master's level. And they're working with universities to create that content for their own employees as well. So the way universities deliver their content is changing, and it's not just through what we think of as the traditional campus or the traditional university experience.
Now, you talk about the student-centric experience. There's been a long moan, I guess, from country people about the brain drain, about losing some of our best and brightest young people to the cities. Does this student-centric approach potentially extend to young people staying in their regional towns and studying online?
Absolutely it does. What it should mean is that young people all around Australia should have access to teaching and learning experiences that are the equivalent of the very best experience that they can have anywhere in the world. And universities are increasingly designing for what is termed synchronous and asynchronous learning. So the asynchronous learning is what a student can do on their own, and that is digitally enabled. And the synchronous is what they do on campus. And so the best universities, regardless of their geography or regardless of their region, are actually starting to think about how do we give our students access to the very best learning content from all around the world that is designed to support the needs and the aspirations of that student. And then when they come onto campus, they have an experience that complements that and is also in small learning groups. And in fact, some of the regional universities are better placed to deliver that. They are better resourced, and some of their size, which is generally a little bit smaller, means that they are better able to facilitate much more personalised learning experiences. So we should actually see less and less distinction between the quality and the scale of the experience of students based on the geography that they happen to live in.
Great. Well, look, the other question that's much more macro, my last question, is really about how do universities adjust because their funding model, they've relied on international students, they're desperate to get them back. How will they adjust to this new online delivery and this bricks and mortar that they won't be using so much anymore?
No, you're absolutely right, they won't. So what a lot of universities are starting to do now is to actually reprioritise a lot of their investment in what would have been, capital buildings and, as you say, bricks and mortar, and to recognise that their most important infrastructure asset is, in fact, their digital assets, so that students can have a really high-quality experience. And, of course, that means that they're no longer confined to just getting students and just seeking fees from a local demographic, but they can spread much more broadly domestically and also internationally to attract different pools of students to what they would have had previously. The other thing we're starting to see a lot of them do is to think differently around how they commercialise their research as well, and to recognise that a lot of them have been pursuing research because they want to boost their international rankings to attract international students. However, if those students aren't coming, but we've got these amazing assets around research, how do we repurpose those assets so that they can produce revenue directly for the universities? And most of Australia's research, over 90% of it, is at or above world standards. So there is an incredible pool of research that we have that is just crying out for investment. And, there's so many opportunities for them to actually look to commercialise that and become increasingly financially independent. And
as we know on the land, that's particularly so for farmers. The agricultural research that comes out usually does have incredible benefits in terms of yields and pest resistance. So I think that's something that universities already do pretty well.
That's exactly right. So it's taking that exact notion and starting to apply it more broadly across other sectors as well.
Well, Catherine Friday, thank you so much for joining us from EY today. Appreciate your insights into where things are going for universities.
Pleasure. Thanks so much for having me, Rikki.